Folks, friends, members, ladies, gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to our annual final meeting of the Historical County of Sarasota. We are going to, we're working on the slideshow. It's a little glitch, but very soon, Jan will have it up and running. This is for y'all to enjoy during the meeting. Let's hear a shout out for our site manager, John Scott. And this would be, I think, an appropriate spot. The spot that John is occupying now was, he's done just a wonderful job on very little notice. In taking the job off his back as a site manager did Linda Garcia. So long. So I would like, will be more about her, but let's take just a quick moment of silence to remember Linda Garcia, whom I affectionately refer to as Linda Darling. How are you doing, Linda Darling? Thank you. I know every time I go into that house,
Yes.
she's still there.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yes.
I go, Linda Darling, it's Sir Gregory. Quite a lady. Thank you. And the review slides are in progress. I think our next piece of business is elections, our annual elections.
Okay.
And Brenda Lee.
I'm just kind of spinning around here so that I can see you all. And as I call out your name, will you please stand so that everyone knows who you are? So I am Brenda Lee Hickman, and I'm also your vice president and presenting today. Greg Dickerson is our president. Greg's standing already. Marcia Fotler is our secretary. Jeff LaHurt is not here.
Knock on the back door, or you go, Jeff.
Okay, my apologies. He's one of our directors at large, and I thought he was traveling, so my apologies. Deborah Walk is also a director at large. Back in the corner there. Kathy Williams is a director at large. Paulina Canali, did I say that correctly? She's not here? Okay, she's a director at large. And Sue Patton. I haven't seen Sue yet. She's a director at large. And so that is a full slate, so I won't ask for any volunteers from the floor because there aren't any openings this time around. Yeah, this is the first time in a long time. With that, do I have any comments regarding the slate of officers?
Congratulations.
You're welcome. Okay, then with that, do I have a vote of agreement? Everyone say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Mr. President, we have a slate of officers for the next 2 years of 2025 through 2027.
Brenda, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm proud to serve another 2. I came on board with a little trepidation, but it's gone very well. And I'm proud to do another 2. But first I have to thank my boards, because that's where the work gets done. And so I'll ask those present. I'll just read again, our board of directors is Frank Cassell, Marcia Frothner, Lauren HSOSC, Jeff Laverde, a sailor, here we go. Betsy Lingenheld, Deborah Watt, Kathy Williams, and Sue Padden. And I can't thank them enough for the work that they do. And the advisory board, equally needed. And a wonderful set of volunteers, Ken Apt, no, actually I think he resigned. We have Neil Pass, Sue Blue, Deborah Bowers, Diane Estes is now board emeritus, Reed Gerletti, Kate Holmes, Jane Kirshner, Ron McCarty, Linda Stevenson, and Bill Watrous. That's our advisory board. So, shout out to them. President's report. This will be a quick review of the past year. Also going on, we have most of the year review up here. Some of the figures and such. John Stone will go into in his upcoming treasurer's report. The year started well. We had last October 12th, annual alumni garden cleanup, getting this place all spiffied up. And on November 3rd, we had the 42nd annual LaBarge tour. John McCarthy was our narrator, and as always, he's done just a wonderful job. We kind of poked the nose of the ship, the bow of the ship out into the Gulf, and he actually the kind of theme of the talk on that one was, but Sarasota never gets hurricanes. As we're heading out Big Pass and you're looking along Shell Road, or you're heading along Bay Isles there, and you see these houses all boarded up and boats and yards, and he'd say, but Sarasota never gets hurricanes. So that was a lot of fun. On the 17th, had a memorial for Linda Garcia. And that was a wonderful celebration. There were very few tears, but a lot of smiles and laughter and remembrances. And she'll always be in our hearts. Has a bench out there on the front porch. If you haven't seen it, she and Veronica have one. There's beautiful plaques on the benches now. On November 24th, Thanksgiving time, we had Liz Corson with a wonderful program, Wish You Were Here. And it was the history of postcards. Remember those? Yeah, every once in a while you get one in the mail, you know, when your kid's on vacation. And you don't see too many anymore. I love to send them out. I send a lot. And I get a lot of thanks back. People say, boy, you just don't get postcards. I'm using it for a bookmark, right? I've got it sitting on the coffee table. So if you're traveling, send a postcard. Because they do get saved. And people go, wow, someone sent me a postcard. It was a wonderful presentation, a history of the evolution of postcards. And a lot of them were not of actual places, but they had stock backgrounds, and they could fill them in and such. Okay. And we had a full house. A full house that day, and there's some notes that I can't hardly read. Yes, and we had a donation, which is sitting in the back there at the table. We got donated the original bell that said the Crockett Church. So that is way cool.
Yes.
That's way cool. That happened in November. Also, although it took what seemed an enormous amount of time to get this lease done, the Alliance for Historic Preservation has rented the room next to the office upstairs. And then we just thought it would be, you know, simple, just add it to the lease and such. Oh no, we had to go meet with the, meet with the city commission, and then we had to attend the city commission meeting to do a presentation, so we were all duly there at 9 o'clock, John and I, Marshall, and Jane, I think. And so we're waiting about noontime. So we're going to take a break for lunch. But we did have good burgers at Patrick's. So, and then we went back and presented what we wanted to do, and it was granted. And they have moved in now. And that is a really good thing, because even though the rent is rather nominal, $600 for good office space, but it really helps us because everything we do here is kind of like on a shoestring. You've got to watch all the bucks because these are amazing buildings and amazing challenges, and we don't get much help from the city. So that about $7,200 a year really will come in handy when we go into repair and the upkeep. So that's a biggie. And speaking of that, I'll probably get a little more later. I'm going to tell y'all, come this fall, we're going to put the arm on you because we're going to be sending out a donation letter, and it's going to be one thing. Probably we need the deck, we need the columns and work done on the front porch. Our south wall is not finished. It was one of these, if you all have ever remodeled, you know, you get surprises, and we get some nasty surprises when they started getting into this project. And to bring this up to where it needs to be, that's going to be $77,000. And between that, the front, we need work on the south wall here. And actually, it's the south wall we found. The east we got that finished off, right, John? Yeah. Right, but the south wall is going to need a lot of work, and the deck. So when that letter arrives, dig deep, gang. You'll be hearing more about that. We have the another campus is the McAlpin House on Little Cross Street. It was a historic house, and then it was built with rusticated brick. And the city developers came in, they wanted to vacate that street where the property was, and there was a lot of push to preserve that house. And in fact, they offered it to us. Would we like to have it moved to this campus and take care of it? Which that was an honor, but we declined it. The board, we had a lot of discussion about it, but the problem was, you know, we're scrambling to keep these two places going. And we said the only way we could consider accepting another project on this property, it would have to come with an endowment. Yeah. And be enough endowment so it could pretty much take care of itself. I think the street did get vacated. I don't know. Does anyone know what the final deal is on the home? They're also looking.
They're still trying to negotiate with the developer to try and save it. I think they've offered to move it, from what I understand, but there's no place that's been, nobody has accepted.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
That's the last thing I've heard of it.
And we had a wonderful holiday party on the 8th. It'll be popping up on here, coming through. Okay. I'll have to wait till someone else presents it and look at the slides. All right, on the 12th of January, we had a wonderful conversation. Josh Goodman, who's the manager of the county's Historic History Center, gave a wonderful talk on the history of turpentine camps in this area. And, I was out of town, but I heard it was a wonderful presentation. We also got a very interesting donation. There was an Ohio judge, it's Harms, I believe. Humes. And John might be able to tell you a little more about it. It was offered to us by, I think it was the grandson of the original judge up there, and I forget, he was locally famous for some negotiations that he did. He was the first person to tackle a certain legal, I guess, dilemma, but he got it done. And we have the whole history of the desk. That's down in the living room. So after the meeting, if you like to go, and it's a pretty impressive piece of furniture. And it's got some stuff about the judge on it. So we are happy to accept that. It fits in very well in the decor down there. On the 23rd of January, we're going to have the Hero of History event in honor of Dolly Jacobs. However, that was postponed just a week or so ago because unfortunately, while training, she took a very serious fall. And she's pretty much rehabilitated now, but I believe she broke her pelvis and sort of other bones. So I'll just skip to that. It was you probably saw on there, it was a wonderful, wonderful luncheon. There were a large contingent from our circus community were there, and they helped us with the centerpieces, and it was very well received. We didn't quite fill the hall, but I think we came pretty close. There was a last-minute flurry. But it was fascinating, and to hear some of the speakers and their tributes to Dolly, and her family was there too, so that was really a fun gig. Okay, on the 23rd, we had Norm Lupino, and he gave a program on the history of the Powell Crosby estate. It was built in 29. So that was a very fascinating. Crosby was quite a guy, radios and cars and such. He very inventive fellow. And in March, we had our second LaBarge History Cruise. Again, John entertained us wonderfully. He's a great speaker. If you all haven't been on one of those cruises, please try. I think you'll really be glad you did. You get a lot of history. It's a good gang on there. There's a lot of laughs. John's an incredible presenter. He never does the same presentation twice. He wings it. And depending where the winds, the tides, and the visibility take LaBarge, John that's kind of his program. And he knows all the shores. I don't know if he knows all the channels, but he knows all the shoals and reefs. So we do quite well. The garden tour on the 5th of April, this was just an amazing event. We co-sponsored. There were 5 homes. You started the church, and then you went up as far as, I think, 24th Street. Some wonderful old homes. They were all done up their gardens. Several of them, they took you through the house. You got to meet the people. And I know all the feedback I got was very positive. And I hope we can do that one again. We'll start the advertising even a little earlier. What were there, 100 or so folks, John?
Just about 100 people.
Over the course of the day. And that was a very positive review. So keep that in mind for next year. Just this Tuesday, the early music consort presented us with a wonderful concert with viola and a variety of recorders, dating back from, I guess, the 1600s, and all the way up to some very modern ones, which are actually square. Some of them about 2 feet, and one of them was about 5 feet. Apparently the inside that made the noise and such was the same, but these, they were much easier because of the spacing of the frets, or whatever you call it. They were a little easier to play. So we got samples of both. And like I said, they played for an hour or so. Deborah and I were enchanted by the music. It's just tops. And we have today's annual meeting. It was a very good year. We'll learn a little more detail because we're going to have our treasurer's report. Again, I just, well, I have a few closing remarks, but again, I just want to thank the board, especially John, and I want to thank you all for coming out and all you folks that participate. I think you probably will not get a mailed out letter like I sent last year. Those are not inexpensive to do, but it will be in the notes. So that you will be getting that letter in the fall for donations, as I say. And I encourage, I think this will help everybody. I think all of us here know somebody that we like and admire, good friends. If every one of us could just recruit one of our buddies, hey, it's a pretty good outfit, why don't you come down and join us? And that, boy, what a boost that would be if we could double our 50% more membership just by all of us bringing in one or two folks. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you meet new neighbors that have just come down or don't know much of Sarasota and are looking for people to meet, I mean, this is a fine group, I gotta say. And we'll just fold them right in, and that will help everyone. And also just want to thank, in addition to the membership at large, all the support you've given me. It means a lot, which is why I'm accepting the nomination to run again. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Sheriff John Stone here. John?
Thank you, Greg.
Good to get slides.
Yeah, having a little trouble with the slideshow here, but Lori's helping me out, and she's the timer.
We are a team.
Anyway, the treasurer's report. You know, this has been a very challenging year after losing our dear friend Linda Garcia, our amazing site manager for the past 15 years. When I learned of her illness, I offered to assume her position. As treasurer, I was already familiar with our finances, and Linda was pleased to not have the stress of working with someone new as her health declined. She worked with me until her death, until her health was no longer permitted, ensuring a smooth transition. I was familiar with the finances, but not the day-to-day operations of the position of site manager. We all know Linda was dedicated to the Historical Society, but I soon learned how hard she worked behind the scenes to keep us in operation. She kept meticulous records, and I was fortunate to have her guidance for a couple of months before her passing. She made it easy for me to step in with everything already in place. During this past year, whenever something unexpected would come up, I'd ask myself, what would Linda do? And I soon felt her presence helping me figure it out. She had a passion for our mission, and I share that passion, and will continue this position for as long as I'm able. I'm very grateful to my fellow board members and dedicated volunteers who have supported me during this difficult and challenging transition. We've had our challenges, but overall, this has been a very good year. I'm continuing to complete my term as treasurer that ends this next year, and also I'm heading our Finance Building Committee. The committee's role is to oversee both our financial obligations and our building and construction projects. This group meets every month to review our finances and the current condition of the Crocker Memorial Church and the Bidwell Wood House. Our hard-working members have met this challenge, and thankfully our finances at the end of this fiscal year are in very good standing. The buildings continue to require a lot of attention, but are in good condition. A huge thank you to committee members Ken App, an advisory board member, Betsy Lingenheld, board member and project manager for the Crocker Church renovations, Brenda Lee Hickman, board member, and President Greg Dickinson, Deborah Bowers, an advisory board member, and Marcia Fowler, board member and past president. Thank you all for helping me get through this year with all these projects.
The committee develops and monitors our annual operating budget. We also recommend funding priorities to the board and help raise restricted funds outside of our operating budget to support needed maintenance of both buildings that are under our care. With the assistance of Betsy Lingenhill, our committee has also keeps tabs on the actual completion of maintenance projects. In the past few years, our priority has been the urgently needed repairs and restoration of the Crocker Memorial Church. We first directed our attention to the west wall, and it has been beautifully restored 2 years ago. We raised about $120,000 in funds to complete that project. In December, we completed the restoration of the east wall. It included replacing the exterior siding along with rotted structural members and new insulation. Beautifully new historically correct windows were installed, and repairs were made to the foundation piers supporting the wall. The cost of this project was $98,000. We were very fortunate to receive a grant in the amount of $40,000 from the William and Marie Selby Foundation, and the rest of the funds were covered by generous donations from all of our members. Thanks to all of you. We've determined that the most crucial area currently needing our attention is the rear wall of the church. 2 years ago, our insurance agent would not renew our policy unless we addressed some issues. We were able to temporarily repair it as much as possible, but the time has come for some serious attention. We won't know the full cost of the renovation until the siding is removed, but we have an estimate of about $78,000. We expect there to be rotted structural members and possible foundation issues. We plan to apply for grants and we'll possibly have an annual plea that Greg has talked about this fall to help getting support from our members in the community. I'm sure you've all noticed the safety cones on the back deck. We've had hoped to replace the deck and expand it by the side door for easier access, but that cost estimate came in at $30,000. For now, we're scheduled to replace the existing rotted boards until we can include it in a future project. Other future projects include the structural reinforcement of the attic trusses, something we don't see but is necessary. That's estimated at $25,000. And then another project that we hope to get going sometime in the near future is replacing the columns at the front of the church with a cost estimate of about $60,000. We had originally hoped to just replace the columns, but now realize that the rear wall is more critical at this time. We're currently scheduled to repair them temporarily and include them in the general cleanup of the front facade. That work, I was just talking to a contractor. We're probably going to get that going in the next couple of weeks. In addition to these major renovations, we've had some substantial unexpected maintenance repairs this year. Hurricane Milton destroyed our main electrical service panel at a cost of $4,800, and it killed our 2 pine trees just on the outside of the church. We have an estimate of about $4,000 to remove them and grind the stumps. But there currently is an active osprey nest there, so that work is ongoing. It's been interesting I keep waiting to see the little babies poking their heads up over the nest, but I haven't seen any babies yet. Other unexpected maintenance costs include replacing our damaged backflow preventer. That was $1,000. AC repairs, $1,750. New security lighting, $750. And several other smaller projects. Our success in raising funds for our building repairs is only one part of fundraising hurdles faced each year by the Historical Society. We must also raise sufficient funds to keep the lights on, the AC running, the water flowing. Normally our operating funds come from the rentals of the Crocker Church as well as our events and programs. We recently increased our rental income by subleasing an upstairs room in the house to the Sarasota Alliance for Historic Preservation. They moved in the beginning of March, and that's been wonderful having them as a neighbor. And we hope also with having the Alliance here on our site, It'll help increase our visibility in the community, and so we're really excited about that for a future cooperation. We have worked really hard and continue to meet our budget goals. This year, we received about $8,500 from membership dues and additional income from some of our events. This includes about $3,100 from our annual Sparkly Saturday jewelry and tag sale, $7,850 from the LaBarge cruises, $3,600 from the Hero of History event honoring Dolly Jacobs, $8,400 from rentals, and $1,900 from our recent Gardens with a History tour. In addition, we received generous donations totaling $31,500. That includes $18,500 matching funds from last year's Giving Challenge. There are also generous donations in honor of Linda Garcia, Kent Goodman, and Marlene Wurzbach. Our operating expenses have remained consistent, except for those noted above, at about $59,000 a year. Therefore, we have been very successful in meeting our goals. We are looking forward to a more active and even better financial year in 25-26. We are expected to start the fiscal year with about $129,000 in our savings and checking accounts, including $75,000 in reserves and $54,000 in unencumbered funds. We will continue to apply for grants and, when available, and participate in other fundraising events. In closing, I want to thank our community of members and friends for their confidence in the Historical Society and for their continuing support of our efforts in historic preservation and history education. Thank you all very much for such a very successful year.
John, thank you. Thank you. Very good report. I think that gives us a pretty good idea of what we do here and our challenges, and we're meeting them well, and we will continue to do so. Next, we have a presentation by Ron Kashden coming up. Let's have a brief introduction. Ron, who's a resident of the Laurel Park neighborhood, came to Sarasota 13 years ago and has been civically engaged ever since. Through the Coalition of City Neighborhoods Association, frequent speaker at the city commission meetings, and has run for office. He's passionate about saving and protecting the places and structures that make Sarasota special. He's an ardent supporter of saving and protecting the Van Wezel Performing Arts Hall and is a frequent speaker at gatherings such as this one. He's a certified public accountant, computer programmer, and former CFO of a multinational investment firm. He uses his expertise to explain that it doesn't make good sense to tear down or stop properly maintaining our city's Performing Arts Center. He's tireless in his efforts to galvanize community support, and he's having success. He's here today for an update for us all. Please welcome Ron Kashden, who will take questions after his presentation.
Thank you for the introduction.
Ron, welcome. Give you space here.
No, the hat's off.
I think this is called a dais or a lectern. Some people call them podiums, but they're not podiums unless your feet are elevated. Like a step behind it from the old Latin, the foot, a diatrist, your bones, your heads. So a podium must have something you step up on. There's a little esoteric trivia there. I present Ron, who's going to give this presentation.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
And I do have some slides, so
Please
we're waiting.
speak right into the microphone.
Okay, yes, I know, kiss the mic, yes. The one thing you learn on the campaign trail, you're never too close to the mic. So,
Excuse me just a minute while I get a slide
right.
together here.
And I do want to thank the society for the invitation to speak to you, because the Van Wezel is kind of an interesting story. And I want this presentation to be beyond just an update on where the preservation effort stands, and kind of pull back some of the curtain so that you can see the behind the scenes of what went on as part of the effort. Because it's interesting, usually when you have some type of historic preservation effort, you're talking about a building that first takes education to the public. What building are you talking about? If you mention the McAlpin House, usually you get that kind of crooked face of they don't know what building you're talking about. But this is the Van Wezel. This is a building that everyone in Sarasota knew about and was still being actively used, is being actively used. So this was an interesting effort insofar as you've got to wonder, how did we get to a place that we're preserving a building that everyone knows about, is an icon for the city, and is currently being actively used, and yet it was in jeopardy of being lost to the community.
Excuse me, I wonder, maybe you have to sign in on this thing?
Oh, shoot. Oh, no, it's the flash drive.
Was it like war?
Oh, no, it's not the That is it.
Grandsons around, grandkids.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the hardest part. So the interesting thing about the Van Wezel and the preservation effort is, to a large extent, it began right here in Crocker Church. And it began with the Historical Society, because this organization was the catalyst to start the community conversation. And I'll go into that, the behind the scenes of why that was an effort unto itself. But kudos to all of you, because without the Historical Society and without the Crocker Church and without that presentation, I believe the Van Wezel might have been seriously in jeopardy. But this goes back to all of you. So, to go to how the Van Wezel became in jeopardy takes a moment. We really should take a step back, taking a page from Jeff. To understand where we are, you have to know history. And that was part of the problem with the Van Wezel. So, back in 2000, there was a large remodeling of the building. And in addition to several minor things, the fly tower, which is the stage where the performances occur, it was made taller to accommodate Broadway shows, because they wanted to focus more on touring Broadway. And the great thing about that, it was a wild success. And you know now that's a big part of the schedule. But what occurred right afterwards? People started looking at the parking lot, because you decided, the community thought there's got to be better use for the land than just surface parking. So a lot of discussion occurred. And what came out of that was informally known as the Cooper's Plan. And Cooper's Robinson, which is a design firm, came up with a multi-use plan for the parking lot. And you can kind of see it here with various buildings around. There was still a Gee Whiz in the background. And they were really going to activate the area. But what happened to this plan? Well, 2009 and the financial crisis occurred. And these plans were shelved. But everyone still saw the parking lot. And you knew something better could occur. So the community started talking amongst itself. And an informal group started to coalesce and solidify and became known as the Bayfront 2020. And these individuals went around to the entire city and they spoke to everyone trying to get feedback. What did you want the land to be? And what coalesced in those discussions, in that effort, was let's turn the area into a park. Rather than building more buildings, the community wanted a park. And that's where this group continued on. And ultimately, it became what we know now as the Bay Park Conservancy. So the Bay Park Conservancy, which was the Bay Park 2020, Bayfront 2020, thought of, let's design this wonderful park around the area beside the Van Wezel as well as the parking lot. And what also came through there was the idea of, well, backing up for a bit. So people are thinking, let's build a park. But the Van Wezel was wildly successful in getting its Broadway shows. And that started squeezing the orchestra, because the orchestra was and still is the #1 client, customer of the Van Wezel. And as more Broadway shows started to be scheduled, the days that the orchestra could play at the Van Wezel started to get tighter and tighter. Another thing occurred for the orchestra was that even though when they made the fly tower taller, they could accommodate more advanced, more sophisticated Broadway shows, but it hurt the acoustics. And the orchestra struggled for many years to try and get back to the acoustic balance that the hall had prior to the remodel. So all of this was swirling around at the time. And at some point, at around 2000, the orchestra said, you know, these growing pains of trying to expand what we want to present, plus the changes that occurred to the building, pushed them to decide, hey, let's get our own concert hall. Because when you think of what is the most optimal hall for Broadway, as it turns out, that's not optimal for acoustic. Because Broadway, like myself here, has amplified sound. And the thing with amplified sound is when you don't have the mic, it makes it much tougher. But you can design buildings that are acoustically sound for non-amplified sound, like the Van Wezel was before the fly tower. So the orchestra is thinking about another building. And so everybody in their minds start thinking about, well, the orchestra is looking for another building. And that led us to the group that I joined and the Crocker Church presentation. Because unfortunately, there started becoming a mindset that for some reason, the Van Wezel, rather than becoming the pride and joy of the city, became an impediment to growth. That somehow the obsolescence of the Van Wezel, if we can convince the community that the Van Wezel is no longer acceptable, that it's no longer useful, that it's dangerous to go into it, that it's about to crumble, it'll be an easier sell for a new building. And so my group, I'm an accountant. I joined individuals from the Alliance, Lori Moldoni, Christopher Wilson, names that you, of course, are familiar with, along with other names still familiar with, architects, Carl Abbott, Mark Smith, who became a commissioner, and even Harvard attorney Robert Radin. And we were all looking at this building, trying to figure out, is the Van Wezel obsolete? And we spent a lot of time doing a ton of research. I was trying to hold up the mic and the book. This is a consolidation of what we took both to the county and the city of our findings. And what did we find? Well, for first, we found out that the Van Wezel actually had a study done, and the city kept it in their pocket for non-public reasons. They never quite explained why they were promoting that the Van Wezel was obsolete, and yet they had an engineering firm saying the building was sound. We also found something else. They were saying that the Van Wezel could no longer compete, that somehow it had gotten too small, that it couldn't get the shows, that if only we had a slightly larger hall, or maybe a much bigger hall, that would attract shows that we couldn't get right now. And what's interesting about that, we had found our group, which included theatrical experts, just the opposite. That what was preventing Sarasota from getting first-run touring acts was not the size of the Van Wezel, but our proximity to Tampa. And why? Because Tampa is a larger population. They can sell more tickets. The producers are, at the end of the day, it's a money-making venture. So if they can sell more tickets, they're going to offer it to Tampa first. And like NFL blackouts, anyone that's a football fan knows, when you turn on the TV and you want to watch the Bucs, you want to watch the local games, they're blacked out. Why? To get you to the stadium. The blackouts are the same thing. And our group also was curious to say, is this a unique occurrence? So we went across the state over to the East Coast, and we took a look at Broward County and compared Broward County to Palm Beach, because Palm Beach has the Kravitz Center, which is similar. It's actually larger than the Van Wezel. It has around 2,200 seats. But it competes with the largest hall in all of Florida, which is the Broward Center. And we found out that when the Kravitz wanted to have Wicked, they had to wait 5 years because Palm Beach couldn't lure the production of Wicked beyond, simply because Broward County has a larger population. And they can do exactly what Tampa does to us. And they can use their population to kind of brute force what they want as first run shows. What was also surprising at the time, and this is a little bit about behind the curtain. So we knew, our little group, that the people that were promoting the new area, the new Performing Arts Center, would have slick materials to prove that we're wrong. And they spent a lot of time with marketing to go step by step, saying things like, the Van Wezel isn't a Frank Lloyd Wright building, it was his son-in-law that designed it. Never saying that the son-in-law was also the lead architect for the Guggenheim. But what was even more surprising than that, and this really caught our group off guard, was the city got involved with the act. And right after the Crocker Church presentation, immediately afterwards, the city started sending out letters. And what the letters said was, ignore the residents, ignore Carl Abbott, ignore Lori, ignore Christopher Wilson. They don't understand. The Van Wezel is obsolete. It cannot support the community any longer, and we need a new hall. And this was the part I wanted to tell you, because if you received one of these emails, and it's now going well beyond 2 years ago, it caught everyone off guard. Because you don't expect, well, back then, okay, I was naive. Back then, I did not expect the government to put out propaganda against facts. It should have been prescient at the time of times to come. But nonetheless, our group persevered. And I'm happy to say, public sentiment had completely changed. Again, beginning with you, beginning with the Crocker Church, and our group just focused on the facts and having conversations like this, spreading out what is reality. And we had 2,700 people sign a petition. We had gotten the city to actually put out an advisory committee, a purple ribbon committee of experts to actually investigate the building, to get a professional analysis of what should be done. Is the building obsolete? And they had an extensive architectural analysis, as well as a theatrical analysis done, as well as an acoustic analysis done. And not surprising, they found the building sound, satisfactory in all regards. So the good thing is, the Purple Cow has gone from a tarnished reputation back to the beloved landmark that everyone in this room hopefully shares with me. And I think that's important for historic preservation. And we also found out that when you talk about hundreds of thousands of dollars for a new building, the Purple Ribbon Committee actually reinforced what this little working group that I was involved with had. That the Van Wezel can be flood-proofed, what they call dry-proofed, which means that it can be kept dry from last year's storms, the damage that it received, about, I don't know, $7 to $9 million. The final tally hasn't still come in. But we could have protected that building for $800,000. So it shows you that historic preservation can literally pay financially. If you just look at the numbers, me being an accountant, it makes sense. The Sarasota Orchestra. So they've gone out and they purchased land opposite of Lowe's out on Fruitville, right by 75. And they are going to try and build a concert hall. Roughly, their current estimates is around $425 million is what the complex is going to cost. I know. But, to their credit, getting back to the specifications of a hall, an acoustic hall has different characteristics than a Broadway presenting hall. So it's understandable. I'm not sure at that level, but it's understandable why they are longing for a hall that has better acoustics qualities. And then, what about the people that wanted to demolish, well, not demolish, but make the Van Wezel obsolete? And it's the obsolescence that continues to remind me of the Gee Whiz. That you first have a vacant building for a number of years, then it becomes an eyesore. So where does this stand? Where they're still trying to figure out how to pay for the SPAC. And I won't go into the TIF. I love talking about the TIF, but I'm an accountant. So if anyone here wants an explanation of the TIF, I can do that, but we'll do that during Q&A. But needless to say, that I couldn't come up for the city's funding, that the city's cost for this proposal right now. The funding, the revenue that would come from the TIF is insufficient to pay for the building and the parking and the land. It just doesn't work, the numbers. So we'll see where this goes. The City Commission is going to take up this conversation at the end of the month. And the foundation is still even looking for where are they going to put the parking, as well as where will the building go. Even though they found an architect, the site is still up in the air, as well as how to get to the building. So there's still a lot of questions, let alone, for my sake, the underlining question. You know, the reason why you would even have that discussion is why? What are you trying to do with this building? If the Van Wezel is effective at presenting the shows we want to see, and my group was able to verify that if you want to see a show, most of the time, close to 85% of the time, you can get tickets for any show you want. Why are we doing this? So that still needs to be answered as well. But the conversation still continues. And there's the update for the Van Wezel. I'm here for any questions or...
Well, I remember going to the first meeting where they said they were gonna make it obsolete, and man, the response from the community was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that was exciting to see that. I happen to live across from the Van Wezel,
Oh,
right across. But I'm not in the expensive buildings where they have an agreement
yes.
to not block their view, so therefore it's gonna go in front of our building. So every time this comes up, I'm a happy camper. And I keep looking out the building going, how are they going to do this?
Well, the one thing, so they're currently thinking of where the boat ramp is, where the parking is, they were going to put a large theater there. So the question is, because the theater is going to be on the second floor, they're going to elevate it, how do they get the 18-wheelers to the backstage to unload? And they were thinking, let's have a ramp to get up. They were going to have elevated parking. That was the last thing. And I've heard several engineers calculate the angle that that ramp would be, let alone other people, particularly boaters, said, wait a second, you're going to put a second floor parking? How do I get my boat there? So there's still a lot of questions there.
And right now, they're reinforcing the boat area.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wondered if that had anything to do with this, but from what you're saying, it's
No.
a totally different project.
No, that is a totally different project. That they're just trying to reinforce the seawall.
I came here in 2010, so you have just explained to me why, when they increased the fly space in Van Wezel, why the complaints about the orchestra's quality of sound. You're the first one that's explained what changed when they increased the fly space. Okay. I was here for the presentation that started this discussion off. And so I would just like to ask a couple questions. One about the county. Now the county has, as I understand it, has said, we don't see numbers that we can possibly say whether we will be part of this or not. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, yes, that is very much the county consensus. And county commissioners, when asked publicly, have been pushing back very hard on this because they don't understand the need, let alone the cost. The one thing about the TIF, so the idea was the county and the city got together and they came up with this mechanism to fund the Bay Park as well as possibly a new performing arts center or renovations for the Van Wezel or the other buildings around it. And both the city and the county said, how much are we committing? And they did the estimates and they said $180 million between the two of you. And the county thought, all right, I'll contribute $90 million if the city's contributing $90 million. The next year, the estimates came out and they were over $250 million. And the county said, wait a second, we agreed to 190. Why is this number higher? And they said, well, there's been new construction that we didn't include in our original projections, and we try and do something conservative. The following year, it came out around $380 million. Yes, and this is when the county said, when do we cancel this?
So to me, the county is being logical in saying we don't have any solid numbers that we can possibly judge what the future cost of this is going to be. So I don't see the county's position as being anti-city. I just see them being logical in looking at the financial projections on this. And my concern is the city, I don't know where they're going to go in this next month, but I can't imagine that the city can logically say, oh, we're sure we can handle this without the county.
Yeah.
That seems like a very dangerous place for the city to go.
Yes, because currently, the projections for the TIF, both all the people doing it independently is a little over $600 million. And you have to understand, that is property tax money not being used for stormwater, not being used for anything else. It's currently reserved. And yeah, the county is, they feel that they're keeping up with the commitment that they made. They never made a commitment for that size.
Another, at the Hero of History event that we had recently, I talked with Michael Saunders about the projections for all the growth of these 18-story condos and how, how much money is this gonna produce for a new center. And she was very clear I heard her very clearly that it takes at least 3 years to sell one of these 18-story condos. And we've got so many on the drawing boards now. And the market, of course, has turned and gone the other way. And it would just seem, I just came away saying, why doesn't the city commission just talk to Michael Saunders and find out that they're going out on a limb here to spend money that is just dreaming?
Yeah. Yes.
You didn't comment about the buildings, the Chitsey building,
Oh, yes.
all of those in a row. Are they still in play to be kept?
They are absolutely going to be kept. What, I don't have,
Because at one point they were in jeopardy too. Yeah.
yes. So, everything in this drawing, other than the possible new performing arts center, is under the purview of the Bay Park Conservancy with A.G. Lafley. And they're actively restoring those buildings. So those are safe. They're going to be used. There is a plan. Bay Park Conservancy, that's even a part of their current phase 2 that's underway. So the Chintzy is getting really a lot of attention, a lot of love and care, and that will open, as well as anyone that's been to the Blue Pagoda, as well as a garden club. So all those buildings, even to the point of the hazard fountain. People in this room may know that it's a historic fountain that's been moved in front of, this is the municipal auditorium. And there is a well-known historical fountain there. What's interesting is, while the Performing Arts Center Foundation thinks there's an endless gold mine with the TIF, A.G. Lafley looked to restore the hazard fountain and said he couldn't afford it. It didn't pay to try and renovate it. He got a cost of upwards of $700,000 to fully plumb it and get it back to a full working condition. So they're going to turn it into a planter, but still maintain it.
For now, are they still keeping the driveway and parking in front to the east of those buildings?
Yep.
Because where else is the parking going?
Well, and I don't have the updates from the Bay Park Conservancy. They're doing a lot of really wonderful, innovative stuff for that parking directly in front, as well as this little area right here. They want to turn that into a kind of a gathering center. They're doing a lot of work to enhance that and put in seats and really make that area useful. Right now, it's just parking.
So you wouldn't be able to come up from where the opera has been up through and...
I forget exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to work around that. But they're still keeping the parking in front, and there will be this area here. But this is going to, I think they're calling it a town square. But anyone that's interested should go to the Bay Park Conservancy website and can get some wonderful.
And can you tell us what the Chitsey building will be used for?
That I don't know, but the Bay Park Conservancy is giving tours, I think twice a month, of what they've been doing, the renovation. And I took that maybe 3 weeks ago, and it's wonderful to see. You know, they're trying to keep a lot of the facade while restoring the parts that, you know, really needed a lot of work.
Thank you.
Sure.
How seriously committed is the city commission to the advice of the Purple Ribbon panel that's supposed to have its results later this month, I guess?
You know, it's really interesting because the commission have said they're absolutely committed to waiting to see what that board, the advisory board, states. They expect, the advisory board, the Purple Ribbon Committee, expects to have their final report sometime in June. However, the commission at the end of this month is going to discuss whether they want to commit to an implementation agreement for the Performing Arts Center. So the question is, why wouldn't you want to wait to see what the Purple Ribbon Committee does? And it'll be interesting to see whether the commission, they've acknowledged the odd timing of that, but I don't know what they'll end up doing.
Do you happen to know what is happening with the Bellhaven?
You know, that is a really good question. So the Bellhaven is here. It is the historic building in the Quay that was going to get, I believe, retail and never did. And I know the people in the Quay have been wondering exactly that question. But I haven't heard any, I haven't heard of any projects going on for the Bellhaven. I know the Bellhaven should be protected, but I don't know what they're going to use it for.
Should be what, Will?
I know.
Is it honestly protected, or?
I think it is, but that's a better question for the Alliance.
Ron?
No.
You said that the city commission is going to be addressing this at the end of the month.
Yes.
What, is that at a city commission meeting?
It's going to be a special city commission meeting where everyone can, it will have public input.
What is the date of that meeting?
Great question. We don't know. We think, I think it's April 27th, but it has,
22nd. And this is the thing they do, they send out 100 gazillion emails until you get so tired of looking at them that you miss the one.
right.
You know,
Well-
this is really important stuff here, and we have the right to be heard.
Well, one thing that is interesting is the city commission just recently passed as part of their rules that they will notice any meeting 17 days prior and have all the backup material 17 days prior.
Well, how many days is it until the 22nd? Because that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. They were originally thinking the 15th, but that got pushed back. The only thing I know for certain is they want it before May 3rd. They want it sometime in April. So it's probably going to be in that last week, but it's just not on the schedule. It's not on the calendar yet.
We should all have to look out for it.
I have been reading that there's a possibility of 2 restaurants to be by the boat ramp,
Yep.
possibly Michael's on East or the Shore. And also the lawn bowling seems to have been decreased by some group. I don't know whether it's the conservatory or the other group.
The lawn bowling's actually been moved to another location, and I think it's near Bobby Jones, but I could be wrong on that.
It is, they're still trying to develop it.
Okay.
All right. restaurants, do we?
The restaurants are absolutely in the plans. It's not going to be in this phase of the Bay Park Conservancy, but I think it's in the next phase, the phase 3.
Going back to Tampa for a minute, I'm assuming there's no law that says Tampa has it and you can't have it for a year.
Absolutely. There's no law whatsoever. It's a contractual thing. It'll be only times where there's a hot show that's coming around and Tampa wants to make the most use of it. You know, Michael Jackson, or, you know, people go back, Hamilton, or Wicked. Wicked's a perfect example. It's shows like that. And you can see with our relationship to Tampa, absolutely mirrors the Kravitz Center, West Palm Beach, to Broward.
But if have people talked to the actual show and said, would you come to Sarasota to perform the show Wicked, let's say? 6 months from when you go to Tampa, or they just go to Tampa and get on Dodge?
I think they do. I mean, every now and then it depends on the way the shows, how their touring works. Sometimes you'll see it'll go from Tampa to Fort Myers and bounce down with that. Sometimes it'll hit Tampa and then leave the state. It really depends. Now there'll be other shows that will hit Tampa, then Sarasota, then Fort Myers, then Naples. You know, it'll go right down the chain. I think it really depends on the show's economics and what they want to do. There's absolutely no law. It's purely contractual negotiations.
What are the sizes of the performing arts in Tampa and Naples? And in Fort Myers and Naples?
In Tampa, it's 2,600 seats, around there. What is in Tampa? Something around there, in the Strass Center. What the Performing Arts Foundation wants to do is make the new their new theater slightly larger than the Strass, by maybe 100 seats, to try and push that through.
And how large is Fort Myers and Naples?
I don't have those figures on me.
I always thought that they were in line with the Van Wezel as opposed to.
They are. And we've seen, when we've seen shows that we wanted, that we couldn't get, that other areas in the country would get the show. In a theater that was smaller than the Van Wezel. And that just reinforced that it's a geographic obstacle rather than the theater size.
I have run with little knowledge about this whole process, having stayed out of it, because I was a county resident when this was being discussed in the city. But what I hear, or think I hear from your presentation, is that your group is seeking to preserve the Van Wezel, but not just to preserve it, but to preserve it as a performing arts hall. Whereas, as I understand it, the Van Wezel would be prohibited from any performing arts performances if the new performing arts hall is built.
Absolutely. Well, originally, when we were discussing this the last time I was here, it was one part of the agreement that the city signed, kind of forced obsolescence, that the Van Wezel could not have any event that competed, and just competed, whatever that meant, with the new center. The foundation has changed their tune, because I think it's easier now to try and get their project approved, to say, if you approve our new hall, we will also program the Van Wezel. So that's just been the latest thing, but only if you approve our proposal right now.
just gonna be just having a symphony, or are they gonna be renting their hall out for other events also?
Well, that is a good question, because their new hall is going to have 1,800 seats, plus a smaller hall with, I think, 300.
No, 700.
What?
700.
700. Okay, yes, for a total of 25. 2,500, thank you. They're going to have to program with other acts, because they're gonna have to pay for a $425 million project. And that is a large nut, just to keep it operational, you know, even forgetting about how much, you know, you have to fund it and capitalize it, just to maintain it. So it's absolutely going to have competition with the Van Wezel and any hall that is built here. You know, it does feel like the non-for-profits are eating their own, competing against ourselves. You know, we're a community of 60,000 residents. And yes, we get guests coming in, we get tourists. But when you think about the Van Wezel at 1,700, and then you add in 2,500 more seats, and then you add in potentially 2,700 more seats, and you have to fill them every night. You know, you're going to have to sell triple the number of tickets. And that's in addition to the competition with the Oslo, you know, West Coast, West Coast Theater, Florida Studio Theater, on and on. So it's going to be, it's going to have programming conflicts. You know, I don't see any other way around it.
I mean, the other thing is that they have put no additional funds away in this process of looking at this for overrun. And I don't know that there's a big project in any place in America that says it's gonna be $450 million, but guess what, it turns out to be $700 million. Because
Yeah.
of the overruns and all that kind of stuff. How does that get figured into all of this?
Well, the last time I was here at the Crocker Church, their project was around 300 million.
Right.
So now they say it's 407, not including parking, not including land, not including, you know, on and on. And, you know, we're hiring a world-class Italian architect who's trying to design a very large hall on the water. So yes, it's reasonable to think there'll be cost overruns. I do have, if anyone wants to, there are some pamphlets in the back where the souvenirs are for a prior presentation, if you just want more information about what's going on.
Thank you.
Ron, thank you ever so much for a very illuminating and very informative presentation. And I think it's argued, we need, as Ron didn't say precisely, but we all get it, we really need to keep an eye on City Hall. And the old adage, cui bono, which means who prospers, all right, i.e. follow the money. So that was a wonderful presentation. Next we have a drawing for some James.
It's very hot. I want to get rid of it very quickly. Pull out your red stickers here. Ready? Start.
Yes.
And if you have 1600885. 160-102. One six zero one oh seven. 160086. You already won one, you can't do two.
Look forward to working with you. There's an alphabet soup. All right, is that the drawings? Everything's set. I'd like to thank, folks, I'd just like to thank everyone, A, for their support, B, for coming out to this meeting. I hope you have had a great time, a lot of fun. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Put a little away each week when you get that letter in the fall. Because you know it will be very well spent, and we are very good stewards, I think, of this campus, and it's our goal to continue doing so. Have a great summer, folks. Thank you.